good afternoon, and welcome to Mix It Up with ML episode number 16. If you're new here, this podcast is really just all about learning from super passionate people about their respective fields. And so really quickly, before we get into it, if you enjoy this content or enjoy this episode today, please consider just liking the video, subscribing, doing all that good stuff, because it'll really help the channel grow. So today's episode is really especially exciting for me because I get to talk with somebody who, no exaggeration, is really a personal hero, a big influence on my life. Josh Hash is the founder of Strength Side, a fitness movement that has amassed almost like 630,000 subscribers, I think, Josh, on YouTube, and really grown into a big following. So I've been training with Josh and Strength Side, specifically his online guided program, since around like January of 2020. And doing so has really just had a huge influence, as I said, on my fitness, mental outlook, and life in general. So just really looking forward to talking with Josh about his countercultural view of physical fitness, his mindset, and just his overall journey building Strength Side. Josh, thank you so much for being here, my man.
Thanks for having me, dude. Yeah, that's a very nice intro from me. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm excited just to chat with you, have a good conversation.
Let's do it. All right. So as any returning listeners know, I like to do a really brief, like how we met section, just to give people some context. And so, as I mentioned, I discovered Josh really online through YouTube. As my organized basketball career was really winding down towards like senior year of college, I was dealing with some injuries, like a pretty bad ankle injury, and just trying to find a mode of fitness that appealed to me, because I'm not sure if Josh, you can resonate with this, but like, you played basketball and like you lift weights for basketball to improve your performance, right? Sort of all the way through. But then after basketball ended for me, I just found that lifting weights just did not get me going. I didn't feel like I had an end goal. It just felt like a chore for me. And somewhere along the way there, I found Josh's YouTube, I think his daily practice video. And just long story short, it led me to think, maybe mobility, functional strength, process-oriented fitness is the way. And so, just segueing right into it, I think first things first, Josh, it would be really helpful for you to first define Strength Side's mission for our listeners, if you had to, in one or two sentences. What would you say that Strength Side mission is?
Oh man, yeah, put me on the spot here right off the bat, bro.
It's a tough one.
No, I enjoy it. Like really, I think the mission is actually quite simple. I think it's that more movement, and specifically more diverse movement, can lead to a better quality of life, an improved quality of life, through certain aspects, right? And like one, of course, is the physical side, but also, this mindset, this more like getting into the mental and the spiritual realms, right? Yep. And learning from the movement that you're doing in your life and letting it kind of like letting it like steer the ship for you, as you grow as a person.
Absolutely. Like I love how you touched there, right, on the physical side, but then there's the mental and spiritual and emotional side of it. And ultimately, right, like we all know that they're interconnected, right? But I just figured for the purpose of the pod to like sort of build for our listeners who are not familiar with this sort of training, right? I really want to bring your message to them. I just want to hone in on the physical aspect of it first, and then we can kind of get into that, mental, emotional, spiritual aspect of it. So
yeah,
from that physical perspective, what was your fitness regimen like before founding Strength Side? And could you take us through that journey and like, why was it not doing it for you from that physical standpoint? And we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, very similar to you. I played basketball in college as well, and did some strength and conditioning through basketball. Started actually pretty early, with just like buddies in high school, going to the gym, doing more bodybuilding type training. And I actually I really enjoyed it. I loved the strength and conditioning aspect of playing a sport. But when that sport went away, it was like that became my sport. It was like my sport was lifting weights, and that wasn't as fulfilling as you know, it being kind of a secondary thing to aiding me in being a better athlete, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, you know, I went through a phase of like just actually just getting really, really into strength and conditioning, but not really, not properly doing things with not the best form, and really just like letting my ego lead the way, just thinking like, I want to be like the strongest guy, and I want to be just like lifting like all these weights on Instagram and stuff. And eventually like that accumulated into around the same exact time of me just like starting to like feel really like lost, like I don't know, like for some reason this isn't fulfilling what I'm looking for. And then injury happened, right? And I like, those are so, you know, those are so like, when I look back on it, I could see the parallels there of how those things came together. But the injury, like that just sent me into like, okay, I got to figure things out. Like I got to figure my body out. I'm becoming less athletic. And I want to be able to just do the normal things. I want to be able to like run and jump and climb and just do what you can do as a kid, you know? So that sent me on the journey of like starting to do more body weight movement, starting to have, like I mentioned, like a more diverse movement practice. So not just this linear fashion of just lifting the weights up and down, but, you know, moving in organic ways. And yeah, that's been about like a 6-year journey now. And it's been very rewarding.
Man, I mean, and there's so much there to unpack. But the first thing I think I want to unpack is what you were talking about, how the ego is sort of leading your way in the beginning, right? And I can kind of equate that with sort of like an externally driven fitness mindset, if that makes sense, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And you know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you might agree that strength side is more about that internally driven type of fitness regime. And so, you know, again, from a purely physical standpoint, we can get into all the mental stuff and all the other benefits later, but like, why do you think other people should consider pursuing that sort of fitness versus external sort of fitness, right? You talked about like the different, you touched on this a little bit, like the animal movements, like climbing and just doing all the diverse movements, but you just expand on like, what are the benefits of that internally driven fitness?
Yeah. I mean, when it comes down to it, I think that most of us are, as adults, become driven uh, in fitness, become driven by like more of like negative self-talk, like I'm not good enough. You know, I need to do X, Y, and Z in order to be of value to the people around me, in order to like get love from the world, you know. That's and it's usually driven by like, I don't want to get fat, and like I
Yeah.
gotta stay in shape because it's the thing to do. But what you'll find is that like when these are your motivators, that it's like an empty feeling, and there's always a glass ceiling, right? There's always something you could be better at, or there's always like a feeling of like, I'm not, I'm going to be good enough if I do this thing, but I'm not quite there yet.
Mm.
So, you know, switching that mindset, I mean, I'm still in the process of switching this mindset, right? I don't think it ever totally goes away. But what I started to realize was just that like, oh, I'm starting to understand like this cliche phrase of like, the journey is more important than the destination,
Right.
right?
We've
And
all
like,
heard that. Yeah.
right. And we've all heard it, but it's so true. And it's something that you have to really experience. And for me, I started to experience this by like like seeing something and being interested in it, and then being like, I want to learn this thing, right? Something that I can't do, I want to be able to do it in however many months this is going to take me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I started to get like positive feedback loops of like, okay, I put in X amount of work and I was able to do this. That's really cool. What else can I do? You know, not for anybody else, not for feeding my ego, but just like, because like this process of learning new things and taking things a bit further is a really fun process. And it's something that is like, it's a good way to spend your time here on earth doing, we got to do something. So it can be a lot more rewarding in long term.
Right. Absolutely. And it sounds like it even like feeds into like you achieving those physical goals at a higher clip, maybe than if you were externally, right? Because various things like externally, you can lose that motivation, right? You talked about the positive feedback loop with the internal motivation. You could get kind of injured like both of us did with that external, approach. So I think that
Right.
was a great layout of like the physical benefits of an internal approach that you just said. So do you think this is sort of a piggyback off of that when we let go of wanting those external fitness results or like body results or whatever, and focus on that internally driven fitness, you can actually be more successful in garnering those external things that you wanted, like sort of that paradox there. And like,
Yeah.
how does that process unfold, right? Like, it's a difficult thing to unpack, but if you had to, how would you describe that?
Man, yeah, I love that the conversation that you're bringing up. I think this is really interesting, and I've talked about it a little bit in like videos on YouTube and stuff. But yeah, like when I was lifting weights, like all the things that I really I wanted to have like this killer physique and like just like look really strong and be really strong, and I could never really attain it. But when I let go of that and I started more so going for like performance goals, like I want to
Mm.
be able, rather than like I want to have an 8-pack, it's like, I want to be able to do a muscle up, right? And then somewhere along the line, like those physical goals that I had let go, they just started kind of like popping up, and and like more things started coming to me that I wasn't like directly after anymore.
Mm.
And I've talked to a lot of people that say that have had a similar experience. It's almost like it's almost like an emotional, like letting go of like this thing that we're trying to control the outcome of, letting go of that, and then, for some reason that outcome can sometimes come quicker.
Right.
Have you had a similar experience?
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to bring up, you've seen some of my posts about, the squat, basically just the body weight squat, and trying to improve my mobility in that. And,
Yeah.
early on, I was so like externally driven, like overthinking it, thinking like, oh, I'm not doing this right. Like, right. All that external thought,
Right.
as opposed to, and I remember you put this great comment in the Facebook group, like, just squat, like that's the important thing, right? And I think that's sort of aligned with what you're talking about a performance goal, as opposed to like me wanting it to look a certain way or whatever.
Mm.
Like, I was focused on like, let me just squat. Like, did I squat today? It doesn't matter how it looks right now, and it's gradually gotten better and better and better, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's been exhilarating to see that process unfold. So it has happened for me, for sure.
That's dope. And that brings up two things for me. Number one is
Mhm.
that sometimes we can get too caught up in just like the details, and we want to like hash out everything in our mind and like know for sure that if I put my foot in this placement, then this is going to happen. Um, but that, I think a lot of the time that can like distract energy from just doing the thing, just like
Mm.
putting that time in. And then that's my second point that comes up, is that a lot of the time that what I find with people is like when they're overthinking things like that, it's like, oh, you just haven't spent enough time yet doing and learning from the thing, right? Like we
Right.
just, as much as we want to, right? We're living in this world where it's like learn a handstand in a day, and like, all this like YouTube, click my channel or click my video, and nothing
Yep.
against that. Like I do the same thing
Right.
sometimes as well, right? You got to play the game a little bit, but you just can't replace like time, like you can't replace just, yeah, I've done this for 5 years and now I'm pretty good at it, like,
Right, right. And right, it's like let time do the work. And again, I think this is all wrapped up in that internally driven mindset of like, just spend some time there doing it for you with a performance goal, and then just let it ride out, and you'll get what you want externally. But it's about focusing that intention in the beginning, right? So,
Absolutely.
dude,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I mean, I want to, switch gears a little bit because I'm trying to give people like a crash course on your philosophy, right? Your physical philosophy. Like, I could go on for that about that for days, but could you talk a little bit about how you think fitness should not be something that's confined to that 1 hour intense gym session followed by 23 hours of sitting, right? You say that all the time. That's really been a big influence on me.
Mm.
But trying to like spread it out and integrate it into the day, such as like squatting to check your phone, right? Or hanging from a tree branch, like going on the 3-minute walks. Could you just talk about that to people? Because honestly, man, like I don't think a lot of people have been exposed to that sort of mindset. So I just want to have you talk about it.
Absolutely. And I learned this from doing things the wrong way for so many years. And maybe the wrong way is like a harsh way to put it, but from just doing things like this certain way and then like not really feeling very good in my body. And yeah, I think like in our culture, we really like categorize things, right? As like, okay, this is my fitness time, and then this is my work time, and this is my like relax and watch TV time, and my be with my family time. And like really especially if you look back at like our evolutionary past, it's like movement is just incorporated throughout your life, throughout your day, right? There's no like, hey, I'm gonna go do like this hour workout of push-ups and pull-ups in the cave
Yeah.
and then and then get back to living, right? Like and so now what we see is that like people are willing to work hard. You go to the gym, like you put in some hard work, but if the other 23 hours of the day, like you said, is just spent like not being very conscious of what you're doing, just pretty much just sitting around a bunch like a lot of us do these days, then like you're just not going to be seeing the results that you could be, right? And when I say like results, like it's all very individual. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe you like being stiff, I don't know. If that's the case, then sure, like
Go for it.
keep on doing what you're doing, right? But if you value like being able to just have all the full capacity of your body, then you have to pay attention to these things. And like you said, like there's just easy ways to work in movement into your day, like sitting in a squat, like sitting on the ground instead of sitting in a chair. These are all so simple, but like most of America or just Western civilization, I think is growing too comfortable, right? So with being super comfortable comes usually like a loss of the capacity in your body.
Right. And so me and you are obviously believers in this countercultural, different way of looking at fitness, right? But for anybody who's listening and is still a skeptic, right? Because so much of America, right, is not doing this. Um, in your experience, right, have you lost out on any fitness results, performance, whatever, by no longer adhering to that old way of fitness? And like basically right along with that question is like, are there any cons from a physical perspective to this way of fitness, right? I want to really like push you and ask you that question because I bet lots of people think like I'm losing out on, gaining muscle or gaining performance. And this is all about maintaining, like things like those sort of questions. How would
Right,
you
right.
address that? Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate this question because it makes me it makes me really like think and reflect and assess on like this lifestyle that has become like just so normal to me. But
Exactly.
I, I think like it really does always come down to individual wants, needs, desires. But I think like first you have to, so if your goal is to just be like the strongest person in a deadlift, then then deadlifting should probably take most of your time, right?
Mm,
But at the same time, like I think we don't a lot of the time, like we're not very conscious of where those goals are actually coming from,
yes.
right?
Yep.
So a lot of the time it's coming from a place of like not feeling that great about yourself and not sometimes like we like to say like not feeling safe in the world, like the safer you feel, the more usually the more open you are, and the more you feel like you want to express and use your body in different ways. So yeah, I mean, I think there's always like this spectrum of like, if I want to specialize more in this thing and get really, really good at this thing, then I'm going to have to spend a lot of time here, and I'm going to miss out on some of these other things, right?
Right.
You can choose to do that, and there's just always like a give take balance, right? Or you can choose, hey, I want to be pretty flexible, I want to be pretty strong, I want to be able to have like pretty good balance and stability. You never get like advanced in one thing, but you're probably going to feel good for many years as you age, and you're probably going to be able to, oh, like my friends are playing basketball in the park, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to play with my kids, like running around doing cartwheels, and just have like more freedom to do a variety of things.
I love it. Right. What you're talking about is discerning your intention for fitness. Like, what is it that you're after, and being intentional about that intention, right? For lack of a better
Yes.
phrase, like sitting down and being like, what do I really want? And right, if you really want to be the best deadlifter in the world, like there's nothing wrong with that. Go for it, of course, right? But I just think for me and you, and maybe for more people than think, um, they do want to play with their kids and to go play basketball and to like, not feel terrible at the end of the day of working, right? So
Yeah.
it's just important to bring that message. And so I really appreciate you sort of drawing that distinction. you know
Absolutely, yeah, and I think like all goals are worthy goals, and you always have the power to shift goals as well, I think. And I think that's what we sometimes don't realize is like, hey, maybe I do want to work on building muscle for the next year, but then, in a year's time after I've built some muscle, then I'm going to like shift to something else that interests me. But a lot of the time I think that we just get this narrow focus of like, well, I chose to start like lifting like a bodybuilder back when I was 18. So of course I'm just going to keep doing it until I'm like 50 and I'm like having knee replacements and shoulder replacements and
mm-hmm.
stuff, right? Like it's a very hard thing to shift your identity and to like be like, oh, my shoulder is not feeling good. Maybe I shouldn't bench press heavy today. Like maybe I should go do some mobility or whatever, right? But it's very hard if your ego is super attached to how much
Yes.
you can bench press, right? I went through that years ago, and it's hard. It's challenging to drop that, but you can do it, and you can feel better from doing it.
Absolutely. And just a quick point in response to that is like, I went through that as well, because like right after senior year, I was really focused on like vertical jump training and improving that to be able to do different dunks and things like that. I was at that
Yeah.
for years. And I really had a moment, man, in like September where I was like, man, this is like taking a big toll on my body. I think I want to shift to more like just strength side training, like pretty much all of the time. And I was like, oh, I'm like letting go of this. I'm not going to be as athletic. Like that was a real identity crisis.
Yeah.
And like you said, of course, you're going to always have some trade-offs, but for anybody who's worried about that, of like losing their external performance results or whatever, like I'm actually jumping just as well, if not better now than I was before. Right. So maybe that's just unique
Nice.
to me, but
Yeah.
just wanted to put that out there for what we're talking
I
about.
love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's really cool. And so I'm interested, like, do you jump very often anymore?
Like nowhere near as much as I did before. Right. But what I love about your workouts is you try to incorporate that, like jumping and just doing those physical movements that leave the ground, right, as much as you
Sure.
can. So I
Yeah.
maybe once a week, honestly. And in the winter, it was tougher. I wasn't outside and stuff, but I still have that capacity, right? So I think
Right.
strength sides help me build that foundational leg strength. You know what I mean? As opposed to like that fast twitch, like, oh, I just need to go really intense in the gym for a few months and
Uh-huh.
then I'm bouncy. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So
And I mean, I think a lot of the time, like you can maintain something with a lot less work than you realize.
yes.
So it's like maybe all the jumping that you're doing, like training jumping 3-4 times a week or something, actually all that impact is just like making you feel kind of achy and not very good, but you know, you could cut that back to one time a week, be getting the same results and be feeling a lot better, right?
Amen. It's the less is it's the less is more, right? And it's a hard balance to find. It takes some, it takes some messing up, right? But
Absolutely.
that's beautiful. And sort of like last one or two questions here on the physical side.
Mhm.
You mentioned how you could shift goals and whatnot, and how things evolve and change, right? And I've seen you doing some more like parkour stuff. And like I just want to ask you a little bit about your physical journey, right? And like how has it evolved over the years? And then my second question would be like, what has been the most challenging part of that journey for you? Just
Mm.
wanted to get those two questions for you. You can tackle whatever you want in
Yeah,
whatever
you're
order.
hitting this question at a really good time for me because I'm actually I'm working the past few days. I've been working with my video editor, and we're putting together like a 5-year handstand transformation.
Sick.
Because it's been about 5 years since I've been working on a handstand. So oh, I lost my train of thought. Why did I start saying that?
You're talking about like evolving your journey,
Right,
and how it's
right.
shifted. Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
you're good.
um, so yeah, so like I've been like reflecting on that because basically like when I had my knee injury, I was like, okay, body weight training. Oh, like handstand pops up. Handstand. That would be really cool to learn a handstand, right? So I started like really going at that, and I was like, yeah, this is like my main goal for so many years. I put so much time and effort into it. And then it like that started to evolve. I started to get more interested in like, okay, I can do a handstand now. So I can either like keep on training, like doing different types of handstands. Maybe I go for a one arm handstand, or what started becoming more interesting to me is just different ways of going upside down. Like, oh, different types of cartwheels, different speeds of cartwheels, like doing like more of these capoeira movements
Mm-hmm.
that involve going on upside down so much, right? So then it was like this journey that just started with like really, really wanting to do a handstand, really started to unfold some beautiful things for me. Like I started to just get really into these different uh, these different modalities of training,
Right.
and I started to like learn more from these experiences, and I started to like really just enjoy what I was doing more and more because I like get to go flip around upside down like a couple times a week. Like this is so enjoyable to me, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's and like to just like be a little bit more practical, my training has like evolved to basically just be trying to like to using more of like calisthenics and gymnastics style training to get my strength work in, and that's really helped me like correct some imbalances that I had from way back when playing basketball, having injuries,
Yep.
just like postural imbalances, all this stuff. I think gymnastics and calisthenics like really teaches you how to just create strength within your body, and like acting upon usually like the ground or a bar or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I've gotten super interested in capoeira over the years, more recently parkour. And like what feels really good is like I have my body in a place where I can just go out and explore these things and like start to like do more and more cool things with my body because I put a lot of time into like just building that structural component to build more upon.
Right. And I love what you said about how, your handstand opened you up to different modalities of fitness, right? And I think that's one good thing to touch upon is that, at least for me, like I found again, like the weightlifting's starting to get a little bit boring over time. And I didn't know
Right.
how to evolve it, right? Because it's more that linear exercising. But one positive again of this type of perspective is that it can really open you up to just like an infinite array of movements, right, in our body. It's
Uh-huh.
literally infinite. So just another pro that I wanted to touch on of what you were saying is it's very hard to get bored in this way of fitness, right?
Yes. And you'll just start to like see more and more things like, oh, what, like, and like there's people that I have friends that I kind of started doing the same things at the same time, you know, handstand type stuff. And like they've branched out to like go into other things that have interested them more. And then I'm over here, and it's like you just see these things and you're like, oh, that's really interesting to me. I think that's like a really positive point of it all, is just like, what's interesting to you? You
Yes.
know, like I think we don't ask ourselves that enough. Like there's almost this thing of like when you're a kid, it's like, oh, you're into soccer? Okay, you're gonna play soccer. That's awesome. Like, oh, you're into gymnastics, you're gonna do gymnastics. When you're
Yes.
adult, it's like, no. You go to the gym 3 times a week, you get the dumbbells, you like do this, and like that is your movement, that is your fitness. But like it doesn't have to be that way. We can still keep learning for many, many years into our adult into the the age of being an adult.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, like I would just love to see that mindset more like brought to the front of like what fitness is nowadays. I think like I have no problem with lifting weights and
right.
bodybuilding and powerlifting, but I think that sometimes it's easy for young men to just think like that's what we do, that's what we
Hmm.
have to do, and it's not. There's so many different things that we can do.
Right. And you talk about, or I mean, broadly, people talk about you want exercise to be something that you look forward to and that you're like excited to do the next day. Right. And I think, again, the infinite array of movements, not getting bored, going after things that interest you can really fuel that flame of like
Mm,
interest in exercise. It's not a check off the list type thing. It's like, man, I get to work out today for 20 to 30 minutes. Like, what am I going to do today? And
yeah.
again, it comes back to what we said, building that, like fueling that flame and getting that snowball going is what gets you those external results, like consistency over time, right? Like
Yes.
more and more time. So I think it's all connected, man. And it just gets me fired
That's
up.
yeah, I mean, that's such a great point right there, dude. So I'm curious in what interests you right now? What gets you excited for your next workout movement session?
Yeah, honestly, it's like been the squat for almost like a little bit over a year, just working on like what I love about the squat is that it takes like a lot of different parts of the body put together to do it successfully, right? Like your
Mm,
spine,
mhm.
your hips, your ankles, all those things. So like
Absolutely.
in your training videos, I like different workouts focus on different aspects of that. And I feel like that's fun because then I get to like just spend time in the squat after it and see how the things I've been working on are feeding towards that performance goal. Right. So I'm excited to see what comes next, but it's still been the squat for me, honestly.
Nice. Yeah. So
Yeah.
true. I mean, it just incorporates everything. And yeah, and then like there's so many more places that you can take the squat as well. There's like
Yeah.
different variations of the squat and like moving in and out of the squat and everything. So it really is just like a beautiful position that leads to a lot of good movement.
Absolutely, man. Man, I mean, I had a couple other physical questions, but I want to move on to keep, us under time here for
All
you.
right.
But so I want to move right into the mind aspect of strength side and how, speaking for myself, as I deepen this physical practice, I began to experience those beneficial mental effects, right? I was a psych major in college, avid meditation practitioner. So I just
Mm,
really want to dive into that with you, man, because I know you're interested in like similar things.
yeah.
Um, and so I think like, you sometimes come across in your videos, not by any fault of your own, but just by the way social media and perception works, as
Uh-huh.
like having been born with this incredible degree of chillness and enlightenment. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
really appreciated one of your videos where you talked about like just like every other human, like you struggled with anxiety before, right? And like how you've worked through that through your practice,
Mm.
right? And so we touched on this briefly, right? But I just wanted to expand on it a little bit more. Like what is it about the strength side way, that internally driven fitness that can really help us become more in tune with our minds and help us just become more mentally healthy? I know that was long-winded, but I just wanted to set up this part of the, conversation.
Yeah, no, that was a great segue, I think. Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is that or I guess like my main belief is that like living in the mind, in overthinking and these things that usually can lead to more like anxious feelings or even like depressed feelings. I think like way to the best way to just combat that, or really just to dance with that, is to move. Like we have to get more embodied, right? And that's not to say that like if you move all day long then you'll have no problems.
Yes.
But I think it will move you in a better direction. There's a reason why people love yoga, and it's because you're doing like two things. You're moving your body, you're stretching your joints, you're using strength, and you're also connecting to your breath. And that feels really, really good. And you feel really, really present. Right. And I think that when you're doing more of this traditional fitness route, it's easy to keep in the mind while you're doing the fitness stuff. Yes. Right. Yeah. Like you're running on the treadmill, but you're like watching TV, and really you're just like thinking a bunch, and you're like lifting these weights, but you're just like you're not like feeling what's actually going on here, and you're not like super connected to the breath. Maybe you are, but that's kind of like the goal of a lot of our strength side work is, sometimes it's not about like, hey, here's the best stretch, or here's the way that you can get the strongest. It's just about like, hey, let's drop everything from the day and let's just like drop into our bodies and like move in some ways that are very natural for a human body to move. And then like, let's connect to our breath and let's just see how that feels. And feels pretty damn good.
Right. It does. Right. It's beautiful what you said, going from I think they call it like the attic of the mind into like the rose garden of the body. Right. It's just going from top to bottom. And I bet other people work out at different times, but I like to do strength side work really in the morning, right? Because it's almost like our mind turns on like automatically. And if you're not intentional about going from here to here in the beginning of your day, I think it could be really easy to just stay up here the whole time, right? So I love what you said, right? Going from here to here is what about strength side helps us, dance with that part of being a human, which is your mind. Right. And so, one of your videos goes through your morning routine where you were reading the book, The Untethered Soul. I think this is a little while ago. But you talk about this idea that's central to meditation, right? Is that we are not our thoughts. And so could you expand on that for our listeners, right? Who may have never heard about this before, may never have done meditation, like just this critical idea.
Yeah. And I mean, like caveat, I was reading from the book, so it's not like my
yes,
it's not like I made this up, but it has like been very beneficial for me to like to learn this stuff and to think this way. And yeah, it's it's like, as best as I can understand it for myself, like it's this concept of the things that are happening around you and the things that are happening in reaction to what's happening around you in your mind are not necessarily you, right? They can just be a product of environment and your past and anything. And if you can, for me, if I can start to get in a place where I understand that and I feel that, then you can get behind the mind just a little bit, right? And you can kind of be like this observer. And this is just like very foundational to most types of meditation, right? Is just like observing what comes up. And I think a big one is like slowing down the reaction time. And yeah, a lot of the time that can happen through breath and reflection and just being quiet. Man, it's making me want to meditate, honestly.
Yeah, honestly. I'm like, after this pod, I just got to go sit down. I love it. Yeah, I think, right, like you tap in, what you just said is that and this sounds like woo woo and everything if you've never done it, but if you really take the time to sit down, like you see that, I think you would agree, like we are that awareness, right? Of being able to step back from that mind. We're not all that stuff going on, but we're the awareness. I think meditation can kind of help you tap into that over time. And I've been doing it for like 5 years. It's taken a lot of time to really
Yeah.
like, you know, get that really internalized. Like you can know it intellectually, but
Right.
like how would you describe your meditation practice and like how it's evolved over time and how it's benefited your life? If you had to, it's a tough thing to talk about as opposed to just experience, but
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to hear yours as well, because
mhm.
that's a good amount of time that you've put into this, and that's always like very nice to hear reflections from someone who's put in that amount of time. But for me, like it changes up quite a bit. Like I've had times where I got into Joe Dispenza's work for a little while, and I was doing like 45-minute meditations every morning,
Wow.
um, and it was great. That felt really really good. I would say like now, I have I have I usually like to just sit down for about 10 minutes and get some space, and like kind of the same as we're talking about movement. Try to like incorporate that meditation more throughout my day, rather than like having it to have to be in this like big chunk of like 20 minutes or 40 minutes or something like that. But rather like I'm starting to think of meditation as just simply like stillness and even reflection, right? Uh, like I consider sometimes like my journaling practices meditation, because I'm
Mm,
just like taking the time to like see my thoughts and see what's coming up for the day. And yeah, I think that anything that involves, for me, like anything that involves like being still or reflecting is just so powerful. And it's definitely the harder thing for me to do, because I'm like most people, I'm like, well, if I want to get a result, if I want to get better, then I need to take action. I need to like do
yes.
more things, right? And then like sometimes it's just like the removing of things that really has the biggest effect on your life.
Absolutely, man. And yeah, I think like for me, the way I would talk about my meditation experience would be, yeah, like first off, it was really tough. Like for those 4 years, I started freshman year of college or senior year of high school, and then it was a little bit
Wow.
inconsistent in college, right? Because I had so much going on. But I
Sure.
think another reason why it was tough is that when you first start to meditate, all those things that were previously underneath the surface, they start to come up and you really start to see what's going
Mm.
on in your mind. And that could be
Mhm.
really disconcerting. So like I wanted to mention that once when you asked like what has my experience been like? I think first it was tough, right? And I think this is
Mm.
common for a lot of people, is that when you really start to see, like it's the awareness, like you said. It's not, we're not tangled up in all the thoughts and emotions, you're like behind it. And it's disconcerting. So it took me like 4 years to really like want to do it consistently, because that's like not, the most enjoyable thing in the beginning, right? Because we think
Yeah.
about meditation of I'm doing this to feel really still and calm and everything. And that's really not what happens in the beginning, I think,
Uh-huh.
for most people.
Yeah.
And so that was number one. And then number two is what you said was beautiful, is I think in this last year, I've seen that, you know, it's most effective when it's not segmented to those 10 minutes of your day, which is where they talk about meditation as like a pool of water, maybe in 10 minutes. But
Mm.
then if you let it expand into your day, it's
Mm.
like a river, and then it's like an ocean of like awareness throughout your whole day. And I
Mhm.
think that's when you really get the benefit, right? So,
Yes.
I'm super passionate about this stuff, but that's been my experience.
Yeah. I completely agree. I really like that. Yeah. So you studied psych in college,
Yep.
and is that what got you into meditation?
No, actually, so it was like my mom recommended that I try it before basketball games, like my senior year.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So that was sort of my segue into it. Again, sort of like for like for an external goal of like, oh, I want to be, the
Right.
best performer I can be, which is it's a real benefit of meditation, but I think it's more of an offshoot as opposed to like what should be your real goal.
Right.
And then that's like, I started to keep doing it in college. And then in this gap year, I really picked it up more. But
Nice.
yeah.
I've had a similar experience to you in using like visualization and affirmations and in these types of things to like bring into my life what I'd like to bring in. And I think like all those modalities are very, very powerful. And it's like, I don't think we fully grasp like the power of our thoughts, you know, and the power of like shifting your thinking to support more of like what you're going after. And yeah, but also like I feel like I think like what you kind of also summed up is that is like not necessarily meditation either. Like that's kind of like going after something with a goal in mind, whereas like, you know, if you go too heavily into that, you're moving actually to the opposite end of the spectrum, where like meditation is kind of like, hey, like let's just be okay with everything that we have in our life right now, everything like in this present moment, what's going on. So I think like a healthy balance of those is really effective.
And I think the beautiful thing about it, Josh, is that it really is, and this brings a full circle to strength side and how it's all interconnected, right? We talked in the beginning about how having that internally focused mindset and letting go of the external results can really get you what you want fitness wise, like physically. And same thing with meditation, right? Like not sitting down thinking like I need to be relaxed and have a certain state of mind after this, because really that just creates more like chatter in your mind and more constraints
Yes.
on it, right? And it's
Yes.
this idea of letting go, right? So basically I just want to sum it up as strength side is really just incorporating all these things at once, and they're mutually beneficial and kind of feed into each other, right? So working on your physical practice in that way can really feed into your mental practice. So I think there's few things in life more important than that, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know.
absolutely. Um, in our, we run these primal athlete coaching groups. We take like around like 8 to 12 people through every few months. And one of the modules that we use in our group is called Ambition and Surrender. And you know, this has been really like a cornerstone for my reflection practice as of the last couple of years. And it's really like looking at all aspects of my life, like my physical, my training, and my relationships, my work, you know, my leisure, and really breaking down like how balanced am I between ambition and surrender, and where can I balance out more, you know? And like I think that, you know, this has kind of been like a theme of our talk here, but like I think that in like this Zen approach of just like being here and enjoying this moment, I think this is like so powerful for our where we are right now in like in our society. And I also think if you go too far into that, then you become like a lazy hippie or something who doesn't do anything in the world, right? So there's this other part of our modern day lives where what we call ambition, that it's like planning for tomorrow, you know, like if I only think about right now in like just being present, then I might miss out on being able to have a little bit better of a life tomorrow, or being able to grow and transform into something tomorrow. So like always trying to balance these two has been I mean, it's been a process. It's always challenging, but like I'm trying to always reflect back and see, okay, I need to like ease up on my ambition in training right now. I'm going a little bit too hard. I need to like relax and enjoy where I'm at. And then maybe in another aspect of my life, like my relationships, usually it's like, okay, like I need to like put a little bit more effort into like calling a friend or like having better conversations with, you know, the people around me and stuff.
Dude, I could literally talk about this for hours on end because it's just such an interesting topic, right?
Yeah.
But I think, right, the tension between ambition and surrender, I think it's really interesting because I use Headspace, my meditation app.
Yeah.
And basically the founder of it is a guy who used to be a monk. right? So he spent years and years in the monasteries in South Asia and Nepal and things like that, right? Right. He's bringing that to modern secular society, right? And I think obviously being a monk is great. And again, I'm not here to judge anybody's decisions and whatnot, but I think for the vast majority of us, we're sort of moving away from that like isolated lifestyle. And like, this is like the modern times, right? Like the modern struggle and everything that's coming with that is not like, not all of us really want to go just retreat from all of it and just go be a monk and, you know, not have kids or anything like that. Right. So it's,
Right.
and that choice to like walk away from that into the real world brings up ambition and the necessity of that, as you said. And so it's like, how do we balance those things? And I think that's a big fear that a lot of people have for starting meditation and whatnot. It's like, oh, it's going to make me less successful because I'll be less ambitious and less craving of things in the future, right? But there is that balance, right? Where necessarily like you're not going to be Elon Musk probably if you start meditating more and more, right? Like you're not going to be spending that time working on whatever you want to, like bringing us to the
Right.
moon or to Mars. But there is a way, and I think you can get a lot of benefits from meditation that can offset the less time that you spend in your ambitions, if that makes sense, right? Like as your gains can outweigh, you know, the lack of ambition that you might experience. So
Yeah.
it's just it's a beautiful topic.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It is. I mean, it's a really interesting topic. I mean, it's like, I mean, it really, I think it's like, this is kind of like the question of life, right? Like that we're all kind of going through is like, how ambitious do I want to be, or like how much do I want to enjoy? And like, you know, I think we all see that we just have to strike a balance that fits us, you know, and fits our individual goals. And yeah, we can just keep on re-examining that as we move on, you know.
Man, that's beautiful. Just super hype. We got to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah.
And like with the few more minutes here, man, I know we're sort of towards the end, but I really just wanted to ask, you know, not all these questions I have written up, but a few of them
Yeah, go for it.
about you and your journey, and just some of the lessons you've learned along the way, right? So first question would be, you talked about in one of your other podcasts, I think it was with Nolan Smith, student of the game, about how you posted videos for like 3 to 4 years, relatively small following, then your channel blew up, right? Talk about consistency, believing in yourself, all those things that are, you know, sound to us like cliches, but they're cliches for a reason. It's really true. One, like, how did you really come to develop that faith in yourself and your process when the results weren't there? I just want to ask you that first question, and then ask about what has been like now that you've blown up. Is it any different? Things like that. So just wanted to dive into that.
Yeah. Let me think for a second. I want to
Yeah.
be just like really honest and candid. Yeah, I mean, like, I think like the complete honest answer is be like, I don't know. Like when I think back to some of those times, I'm like, why did I keep this thing going? You know, like, but like, honestly, I think I really just like had a deep like feeling and just like this intuition that I just really wanted to like build my lifestyle and build this like life that I was looking to live. And, you know, I had to just like say no to a lot of things that would have resulted in, you know, like I could just take this job here and make like a decent amount of money. But instead I was like, no, I'm going to like resist that. And I'm going to keep on going at this thing because I just like really believe that if I just keep on the path here of developing this thing, developing myself, and those like two merging together and like, in creating more and more, then eventually like it's going to come to what I believe that it will. And and it did, you know, and like, I think I would just consume, like, I'd listen to successful people talk about like how they did it. And, you know, what I always heard was like, just, just like being adamant and being consistent and staying at it. And eventually, how could it not become something, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that was like a big, I think that was like a question that I would ask myself sometimes that would make me feel better. I would say, if I do this for 10 years, how could it not?
I love
Right.
it.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. That was where I was at. And it worked, I guess.
Bro, I love the honesty, right? I could tell that you're really being true to your experience. And so like now that you have blown up, man, you're like 630K at this point. How has your experience of the channel changed, if at all? Um, Now that's different.
Yeah. I've definitely like been through some growing pains. I think like when I first initially blew up, as in like we went from having like, it was like 4 years to get to like 20,000 subscribers. And then, you know, we had a video like go viral, and then all of a sudden we had like 150 subscribers like 3 months later. Right. And it's like, wow, this is a thing now. And I think like I was confronted with some of this imposter syndrome, you know, and
Mhm.
it really, it's like, this is the thing that I wanted for so long, and now it's happening. And now I'm like, oh, I don't know, do I deserve that? Have I put in enough work? Like, do I have a clear message to like use on this platform? Like, I don't know. And um actually, I'm reminded, like, I went through a period where I stopped making videos for like a month, or maybe
Wow.
even a little bit longer. Yeah, I was like, and I was feeling that pressure. And and basically, like, it just took some time of like refocusing, getting back to, hey, why did I start this? Why did I want to build this initially? And then just like finding a way to keep sharing that message. And yeah, that's been kind of like the process, until now, is like, we'll go through these things of, we'll go through these waves, you know. And sometimes it's like you can get caught up in the numbers, and it's like, oh, cool, 600,000 subscribers, we're gonna hit 1 million.
Mhm.
That's super cool. Like, and then you start thinking like, oh, okay, well, I need to do this video to get this popular, and this video will really work and will bring more. But you know, when I get too fixated on stuff like that, it's like it stops feeling right for me. You know, it's like I'm not completely being authentic. So it's just like, okay, let's re-examine, like, let's find something that I'm like really passionate about sharing, and then
Mhm.
like let's go into that. Right. So yeah, does that kind of answer your question?
100%. And I think it shows, man, like again, the how the physical practice, the mental practice, those come together and then they feed into this is like your career, this is your work, right? And you're letting go of that external thing, how many views, how many subscribers, as much as you can, right? It's really hard not to get into that, I'm sure, when you're at that
Right.
level, right? It might even get harder over time, but it sounds like you just try to come back to like, okay, why am I doing this and what kind of content do I want to be putting out here? Because that's really that mindset is what got you huge in the first place. I bet.
Yeah, I think so. And you know, I had a chat with my video editor, who's become like my friend now. And we were just talking about like, oh, like this video did this, and like the analytics on this and stuff. And he was kind of expressing like, oh, I don't know if this is working because it seems like this is dropping off. And I was like, you know what, man, like, a long time ago when I started Strength Side, I made the decision that like this was going to be a business, but it was also going to fulfill a personal passion for me
Wow.
as well. And it's not, and so like, I want to keep driving the business under that umbrella of like, it's not all about the numbers. Like, it's about like it's about sharing and like being passionate about what I'm doing at this current moment. Right. So, always trying to like reattach to that, you know, like, why did I start this? Oh, because like I really love it and I enjoy it. And, it's not just about views and making money and stuff like that, you know?
Right, right. That's beautiful. And so, you know, if you could give your younger self,
Mm,
basically the one who had not yet started strength side,
okay.
one piece of advice, or even, whatever point along the journey you want. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would
Mm.
it be and why?
So what comes to mind right now is I would tell my younger self I would tell my younger self to drop all the ideals of what it is to be successful, and drop all of the images of that's been put there, and really just try to spend your time being fulfilled by what you're doing. Yeah, that's it.
I love it. I love it. First of all, I love that you took the time to think about it. And man, take your time working on things that fulfill you, right? Because like that time is an asset, right? It's like it's probably the most powerful thing we have, right? In so many ways. So, wow.
Right. And like, I think back to some of the time, like pursuing, I talked about the handstand earlier. Like some of the time I spent pursuing it, it was too much. Like I was really just like it was the ego creeping back in, right? And it was like, I want to be able to hold a 60-second handstand, because then I'm going to be like accepted more
Yep.
by these people on Instagram and stuff. And when I think back to like that mindset, it's like that time I spent so much time just training and not being present, and like not enjoying the journey that I was on. Right. And I can see like clearly in that timeline, like when I started to like reconnect, get back out of that mindset. And then, a lot more enjoyment comes into my training process and everything. Right. And, yeah. So like in the end, like I want to remember all the time that I'm spending with like fondness. And I want to like look back on, wow, that was like a really enjoyable time when I was just doing X, Y, and Z,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, man. And like this last question here, as we wrap up, is just I'm curious for this one. Who is Josh outside of strength side? If there are like what parts of you do not come through in your brand, in your videos, the stuff that other people see, like, what do you like to do with your free time and things like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that like my character on strength side is pretty close to who I am in real life.
I thought so. Yeah.
Like I enjoy being very lighthearted and laughing a lot, and not taking things too seriously, but then also like when I have a goal, then taking it very seriously. But yeah, man, like I really enjoy comedy. I like to watch comedy, stand-ups, and like good shows and stuff like that. I this probably doesn't come as a surprise, but like I really enjoy just hiking, being
Yeah.
outdoors, going
Yep.
camping. I think one thing I said on a podcast once is that I was pretty into ceramics for quite some time, and
Okay.
like through a lot of pottery and stuff. And yeah, that was something that I knew that probably most people wouldn't like expect of me. But honestly, when I think back to that, that was probably like the initial time of like getting into like this learning process of like, whoa, like I could not center the clay on this thing when I first started. Now I'm throwing these massive vases because I put like some time in, and
Yeah.
and I really just like for some reason enjoyed that process of doing it, and it was like very meditative to me and stuff. Um, so yeah, that's me.
That's dope. That's dope. What, real quick, what kind of comedians do you especially enjoy? Because I've been getting more into stand-up comedy as
Really?
well. I love it. Yeah.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. Some of my favorites are so some of my favorites are like Dave Chappelle.
Nice.
I really enjoy Chris D'Elia. I like Theo Vaughn. Um, let's see. Who's that guy I was just watching recently? Chris DeStefano.
Just have
Um,
yep, yep,
yeah,
yep.
yeah, yeah. Who are some of your favorites?
Yeah, yeah. So like I recently discovered Nate Bargatze, my girlfriend and I.
Oh, he's
And
so funny. Yeah.
he's, you know, I feel like if a comedian can be that funny without curse words or like vulgarities, like they're funny. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So like
Yes.
I
Absolutely.
love him. Also love Kevin Hart, you know what I mean? Like he
Oh
curses all the
yeah.
time, but like he's my guy. He's from Philly.
Ah,
Um,
yeah. Right.
so Brian Regan I liked as a kid. So just trying to like expand that repertoire more because taking yourself and life less seriously is, you know, it's a good thing to do every couple of days, you know.
Yeah. I got really into Kevin Hart in Aziz Ansari. Like
Aziz, yes, me too.
I used to like watch their stand-ups,
Specials.
like their specials, like I would watch them like multiple times. I'd be
Yeah.
like getting ready to like go to a workout, and I'm like, I just want to like laugh a little bit right here. I'm gonna put this on.
Yep. Yep. Man, totally on the same wavelength there. But well, Josh, you know, we're a little bit over time here. Sorry, taking a little bit more time, but
No
this has
worries.
been just an absolute blast, man. Thank you so much for taking your time and spreading your message because I hope other people can benefit from it the way I have. So thank you for all your influence you've had on my life too, man.
Absolutely, dude. Thank you so much for having me. This has been like a really fun, easy, open conversation. And yeah, I loved it. So
Thanks so
thank you.
much, man. All right, listeners, peace out. See you on the next one.
Peace, y'all.